Can I tell you what I think is the most overlooked marketing by far?
Please.
Okay. It's marketing to your current client as they're your client, like actually demonstrating the value that you're adding to their case and continuing to do it throughout the case.
Welcome to the Center Stage podcast. Have a really great guest for you guys today, Tyson Mutrux. Tyson owns a PI firm in St. Louis. He's also the host of the Maximum Lawyer podcast and the founder of the Maximum Lawyer Guild. So, Tyson, thanks so much for being here. Really excited to have you.
Thanks for having me, Danny. I'm excited. It's just I always like to have conversations like this. I think it's fun. So thanks for
Yeah,
having me.
awesome. So let's start here. Tell the audience a little bit about your firm, right? Your firm in St. Louis.
Yeah, so it's a personal injury firm. It started off, let's see, we started back in 2010. We did criminal defense and personal injury. About 2017, I partnered with someone. We got rid of the criminal defense, just focused just on personal injury. As the vast majority of partnerships go, that one did not work out. But we've continued to do just personal injury. So we handle cases in Missouri and Illinois. We have been expanding and putting in our roots in other parts of the country as part of our plan to expand by 2032. But some of that is yet to come to fruition. It's one of those things where we're laying the pipeline, and then we're gonna be pushing out the marketing. But yeah, it's just do personal injury. No, we got rid of med mal. We don't do med mal anymore, but we do limited product liability. But for the most part, we do all the other PI stuff.
Love it. And you said you started it back in, did you say like 2011?
I guess it was 2011. I'm glad you said that because actually was officially 2011. It was when we launched it. Yeah.
Okay, so day one, was it just you or did you have a team with you from day one?
No, it was just me. It was me and a cell phone, actually two cell phones. Me and two cell phones is what it started out as.
Love it. Love it. And fast forward to today, what does the team look like at this point?
Think all in, I think we're at 24 all in when we include all in-seat and remote and then VAs, which is down from a few years ago because we were knocking on the door of 30 and we had actually gotten it down into the teens by design, which was a really painful process, but a necessary process and a very, very good process that I highly recommend that everyone goes through if they feel like they're a little bloated.
All right, well that's interesting. I mean, tell me just kind of high level, like what for people who are listening to this, right? And our audience is a lot of small law firms, maybe a little smaller than yours on average, but like what are some of the signs of being a little overstaffed or of being a little bloated? Like what made you go down that road?
Um, s- Lots of things. I had read a book called Top Grading, and top grading is really what kind of started all of. But I guess some of the signs would be you start to see your profit percentage decreasing, which is it's not that by itself is not necessarily an indication because you can decrease your profit percentage, but it could also you could raise your revenue substantially, which as the law firm owner could benefit you in other ways. So it's you don't just look at that, but you start to see okay, you got to focus on accountability. You got to focus on okay, is your team actually being productive? So are they actually meeting all their KPIs? Are all the KPIs accurate? That's another part of it too. But if you start to feel some of that bloat where the profit percentages are decreasing, the revenue is stagnating, you start to see signs like that. It's a pretty good sign, and that's why I wanted to mention the revenues because I don't like a lot of times people will preach about revenue and they've got all these amazing revenues and they may not be making any money. Like that's the thing. I don't really care about revenue, but when you're looking at if your revenue's stagnating and then your profits are decreasing, that means that you're probably bloated. That's a pretty good indication of it. So, a lot of times you'll see that your expenses are out of control. That's if you're not even monitoring your expenses, you really should be on a very regular basis auditing your expenses to see if you're still using all the things that well, one, are you using them? But two, do you even really need them? So there's things like that that people just don't monitor that get out of control. So and I do think that we had gotten to that point where revenues were were starting to slow. I wouldn't say they had stagnated yet, but our profits were decreasing, which was a sign. I was noticing that I was getting a little caught up in the idea of building this big team, and that is a really easy thing because that's another one of those ego numbers is the number of people on your team. I've got to have 50 employees, and it's not really true. It's
Right.
it's not necessary. So there's a I think if you were going to ask for the signs, though, it's really revenue and percentage. If the profit percentage is going down, your revenue is stagnating. It's a pretty good indication.
That makes a ton of sense. Okay, love the context, and obviously I want to transition and talk about the Maximum Lawyer Guild and the conference you've got coming up. But one of the reasons I wanted to start by just talking about your firm and your journey is because there are so many coaching groups, masterminds, experts out there, and a lot of them are really great. But I always pay particular attention when it's coming from somebody who has done and in your case is still actively doing the work of scaling a law firm. So thanks for sharing the context, and that's great, and we probably will go back to the firm a little bit because I know that's our audience always loves to hear from practicing law firm owners. But do tell us about the guild, and let's start there. Tell us about the guild.
Yeah. Well, thanks for asking about it. So Jim and I started the podcast together, Maximum Lawyer, and it's kind of the reason I start there is because it all kind of evolved from that. So we started the podcast, and then it went to a conference. We had Max Law Con, actually went to the Facebook group, and then that because we really did the conference to kind of get to know all the people that were listening to the podcast because everyone had gotten into the Facebook group to kind of meet other people that were listening to the show, and it really has just kind of evolved. It's like this it's almost like a crowdsourced podcast, and then a crowdsourced conference, crowdsourced Facebook group, and then we're like, okay, the Facebook group seemed like it was getting a little bit crowded, I'd say. There's, I mean, lots of information being passed, and so we're like, hey, let's create this other group that maybe it's a little bit more exclusive, and that's why we created the guild. Jim Hacking, I give him the credit for the name of it. He created the name. He loves Star Wars, and so he thought that the guild was a really good name, and that's how it all kind of started. So and we created the Maximum Lawyer Guild, and it's really it's a good mix of really high level law firm owners that have been doing this, that have done a really good job of growing their firms to 7 and 8 figures. And you also have some younger lawyers or newer law firm owners, not necessarily new lawyers, but sometimes newer law firm owners that are trying to get to that 7 figure point. So it's a good mix of that where I like that mix too, because sometimes you get younger people that are doing new things and creative things that, can be really, really useful. Or you've got some people that have been doing it a while that, they know the ropes and they know the things that you should and shouldn't be doing. So it's a really good mix.
Love it. Do you guys trend towards PI specifically, or is it kind of practice area agnostic?
It's a really good mix. I'd say there is the majority, and not I would say I do that know that the not the majority, but the plurality is definitely PI. But you definitely have a great mix of everything. So we even have business to business, some business to business law firms, but I mean trade, intellectual property, trademark, estate planning, family law, criminal defense, PI. So you have all the major business consumer type of practice areas, but you have a little bit of the business to business. But we definitely have a really good mix, which is to me is also really cool because sometimes when you're just practice specific, you kind of get stuck in a groove and doing what everyone else is doing. It's nice to see what other niches are doing.
Yeah, 100%. I completely agree with that. So just tell us a little bit more about the actual program. I mean, is this an active coaching program, or is it more of just kind of a mastermind with some events mixed in there? Like, what's the program?
Yeah, so we actually have a couple levels. So there is a mastermind level, which is a group coaching level, and so there is that part of it. And they work directly with me. We also do have we have maximum lawyer minimum time, which is part of the guild. We have a lot of those resources inside of our own little section where we're currently using Kajabi, and that's somewhere where people have access to all those resources. But then we do also have the quarterly events where we have the quarterly masterminds where people can meet in person. We have monthly trainings. We have monthly and Monday and Friday accountability calls. We have our monthly Q&As that we have, which are pretty cool. We have monthly hot seats and the hot seats are virtual. A lot of cool little things mixed in between all of the in-person events.
Love it. And then obviously, you guys have a conference coming up in October in Nashville. I'm happy to be one of the speakers you guys selected, so I'm looking forward to that. But tell the audience a little bit about the conference.
Maxwell Con is cool. It's different. It is I think that's what's so cool about it. For anyone that's been, you know what I'm talking about. For anyone that hasn't, it's such a different experience. When you go, it's just the energy about it. It's the feel about it where everyone is there. They're in the same boat. They're trying to build each other up. They're trying to help each other out. And that's what's so cool about it. We put people on stage that have been there. They're in the trenches. They go to teach based on experience. And I think that is a really, really cool part of Max LawCon. We don't, it's not like we pay a bunch of money to bring in a bunch of big name speakers that are going to come up and just hawk a product or pitch something to you. They're coming up to teach you something, some sort of lesson that will help you with your firm. And it's a really cool feel. My favorite part is actually all the conversations that you have in between the speakers. The speakers are all great. That's a massive part of it. And so I thank you for doing it because I mean, it's just great content. The cool part, because it's like whenever you're having, maybe you're having a drink with someone at 8 o'clock at night and someone tells you about a really cool marketing idea that they had and you all kind of brainstorm it. Like it's those kinds of conversations that are really just the awesome part of it.
Yeah, I know, love it, love it. I'm a big fan of sort of live events and live conference, and I agree. It's always great to hear content from speakers, but it's those organic conversations where you walk away with just something you can't wait to implement once you get back to the office. So that's awesome. So if someone wants to register, how do they do that? Where do they go?
Yeah, maxlawcon.com. Really easy. Maxlawcon.com. And if you can't find it there, maximumlawyer.com. But if you go to maxlawcon.com, you'll find it right there.
Love it. Very cool. Well, super excited to be part of that and to experience it. This will be my first, so very excited about that. So okay, awesome. So kind of circling back to the business of running a law firm, right? Which is where our listeners are at. I have seen I follow your stuff and I've seen you talking a lot about just kind of AI and AI agents and sort of how that is transforming the business of law. So can I put you on the spot a little bit and can you just talk a little bit about what you guys have been doing in terms of adopting AI technology into your practice, maybe what you're seeing some other firms doing? Because just for a little more context, for those of us that are part of the conversation, it seems like we've been talking seriously about AI for 2 years, and a lot of us have. But, there are so many firm owners and business owners out there who are really just dipping their toes into it for the first time. So, like, can we kind of start at kind of the basics? Like, what are some of the opportunities you're seeing? Why should firm owners be excited about this?
All right. So, I feel like if you don't know why you should be excited about it, I think you've been maybe under a rock for a little bit. So I'll just start with that because the opportunities for you to do so much more and so much better. It's not all about doing more, right? It's about doing things better. You can do things so much better if you implement the AI. I do think there are many things where you have to, having a human in the loop. That's a common phrase that you hear with AI. Having a human in the loop. I think that's a really important part of the process. I think very, very soon you're going to have people where your humans are going to be managing agents. That's what they're really going to be doing. It's going to be monitoring everything to make sure everything is working effectively. But for anyone that's just dipping their toe into it, I think, and I can talk about some of the things we're doing, and there's some pretty advanced things. I think you should ignore all that part of the conversation because you'll get you off on the wrong track. I think the best way of starting is starting with very, very small wins and build up from there. So anything that it's requiring, maybe right now where it's a human. I think the easiest way to think about this is if you think about what are your humans currently doing? Okay. Just think about every position. What are the humans currently doing? And what are the lower level things that require little to no thinking? If it requires no thinking, it should probably be automated if it's something that's repetitious. So, and I'm speaking more in general terms just because there's different practice areas that people might be listing. Because I mean, I could give you specifics to PI or estate planning and all that, but let's just leave it kind of high level. So you take those various the things require no thinking. All right, that is something where you just go, all right, we're just going to automate that. If it requires minimal thinking, AI cannot think, but what it can do is it can process. All right, so it can process. So if you think of if it's something that requires very little thinking, and this is where I'll give you a specific example. Let's say that you have to request a police report. Okay, you do have to kind of figure out, all right, what's the correct address to, let's say you have to mail this in. I'm going to give it, a lot of times you can get a police report online these days. So you could use this for either requesting it online or mailing it in. You have to figure out, all right, what's the right address? What's the correct police department? Because you have to base it on the location. That takes a little bit of thinking, not a lot, a little bit of thinking. So a little bit of processing. An agent, you can use an agent for something like that. Where I was, Dan Schnurbush, I was on his show, and he and I were working on this analogy where think of an agent as kind of like as a carpenter. Okay. Automation is something where if you're a hammer, a nail presents itself, boom, it hits it, right? So there's no thinking, right? A
Yep.
carpenter though is that you figure out what's the right tool. So a carpenter comes up, okay, what's the right tool here? Okay. All right, I need a saw on this for this thing because I got to cut this board. Okay, something else comes up. Okay, I need a screwdriver for this. Okay, so the carpenter is deciding what tool. So that's what an agent is. An automation is just it comes up, you hit the hammer hits a nail. Next nail comes up, hammer hits a nail. That kind of a thing. So any sort of thing like that when it comes to your practice and it requires minimal thinking. If it's more advanced thinking, you can start to do things like that, but that's where you have to. The more advanced it gets, the more likely you're going to need some sort of human in the loop to review things and make sure it's okay. So that's why I'm saying you should really start with that and then build
Sure.
up from there. Because we're doing things like right now where an email comes on in with written discovery, the agents can pick up the fact that it is written discovery requests that are directed to our client. It can start to build all of the responses, collect all the documents, do all that right now. That's a pretty advanced
Wow.
thing, and to do that's a really difficult thing. It requires several different agents to do that, and there's something, and I don't know how much you talk about AI on the show, so I will just say this because you may have mentioned this, but I want to make sure I make this point very, very clear. Your one agent's not going to do everything, so don't think that you're going to have one agent that does absolutely everything. In the what I just mentioned, that written discovery process, it's probably 20 different agents, right? It's several different agents that are
Wow.
doing little bitty things that are doing it in a linear fashion for the most part. Sometimes they're doing them at the same time, but for the most part, it's done in a very linear fashion. One step to the next to the
Kind of
next.
assembly line.
Exactly right. So that's
Yeah.
a great way of thinking about it. The only reason why I don't like to use it as an assembly line because sometimes you don't it's not always linear. Sometimes you'll have these parallel flows. And it does require quite a bit of logic. So when you're building these things out, you want to kind of write them out and then implement because sometimes your logic is flawed and you want to make sure that you're testing all this out. But
This is
so
bringing me back to like operations management, like the Gantt charts where you've got your like multiple, you know.
exactly.
So Tyson, did you create this stuff yourself? Like have you done the deep dive?
So yeah, I have. I've built out several myself. And here was my thinking on this. Okay. Whenever you hire employees, you need to understand your employees. You got to know your employees. You got to know what the process is like and all that. And I view agents as the same way. I spent probably the good part of this year, the beginning of this year, just digging in deep and just building out in innate. And we tested out different platforms, so that was part of that process too. We do have a CTO, Kashif, that he does the majority of the building. So what I was doing at the beginning was I built out what I thought made sense for the agents, and then Kashif goes up and cleans up all my nonsense and makes it. Because I remember the first one I built out was one for written discovery requests, which is simpler than actually responding to it. It's a lot of them based on templates and everything, but we did want them to be what made it more complicated is I wanted to make it case specific. So actually review the file, and actually add things to the request that were specific to the file, which made that it required some more advanced processing, right? And that was what I did. I feel that was it was a massive thing. So if you're looking at this at a screen and because it's all in N8N, it's very visual. So it was. I mean, if you want to see the whole thing, you had to zoom out. Everything was like really, really tiny. And so he took it and he condensed it down into this little bitty thing where it took me hours and hours and hours to build this out just so I could get an idea as to how it all worked. He then, because he knows how to code, he knows all these other things. He was able to really condense it down and make it look pretty and it was a much better, more efficient process. But so to answer your question, what I will usually do is he and I will discuss it. I'll either draw it out or I will build out something as to what, without even like completing every step. I will build it out in NAN so he has a good idea as to what visually what I think what it looks like, almost like I'm drawing it out, but I build it out in N8N and then he goes and simplifies it and then we test. And so we have a whole process for how all that works. But usually it's me starting with the idea, him then refining it, and he has assistants that will go in, like for example, like coding documents and all that. That he doesn't spend time on coding documents. Someone else does that, where they'll code the documents and they'll kind of fill in all the little bitty details. But he does the more advanced stuff.
That's so cool. That is super impressive. I like how you kind of you share the context. It's not just about, allowing you to do more, but also improving quality, right? Doing things better. I feel like that's one of the that's one of the wins for everybody, right? Because obviously, AI is shaking things up,
Yeah.
across the whole economy, and there's great things and there's things that are challenges we're gonna have to figure out. But I do like to focus on like it also like there's a lot of opportunities to avoid errors that would otherwise, cost people in very real ways. And I love that you guys have that focus on not just doing more, but just doing better, producing better quality output as well. That's awesome.
Yeah, and part of our plan, so we're not gotten to that stage yet because we're building out other things, is there's actually going to be agents that are going to be doing file reviews. Um, and it's just one of those things. It's just not as we already have manual people doing manual file reviews on a regular basis. But one of the things we are going to do is we're going to have them going through and doing on a regular basis. And what's great thing about these agents is they can do like daily or weekly file reviews. It's when it comes to like a human doing that, it's hard, right? It's really, really difficult to do to go through and do a really good job. It's hard to do it you can't do it every single day for the most part.
Yeah.
For especially like a lot of PI firms have a lot of cases. It'd be hard to do that, all the time. Even on a weekly basis, it's difficult. So a lot of times firms will do them monthly, but you can have agents do them far more regularly, do a far more thorough job. And so that's one of the things where it's going to be, it's part of our plan. It's just, we haven't gotten to it yet, but I'm glad you'd mentioned that, made me think about it. Cause it's one of those things where we want to do that. It's a really, really important part of it because it's going to catch a lot of errors. It
Yeah.
really is. Yeah.
Love that. All right, so for the law firm owner that's listening to this and really hasn't done much on their own yet, do you have any sort of like starting point, like I don't know, someone you follow on YouTube or a book or like where's the first place somebody can go if they're ready to kind of start implementing this stuff into their firm?
Okay, so I would say first pick a platform. I prefer N8N is what I prefer. Like, people talk about Make, people talk about Zapier. I think Zapier's agent platform is not good. It's just not there yet. The interface is not great. A lot of people like Make quite a bit, but I like N8N. The reason why I mentioned that is once you figure out what the platform is, like my biggest hack I can give you is if you just go to ChatGPT and you can search the different GPTs in there. Like I have a couple different N8N GPTs that I use that help me. I say, here's what I'm trying to do. Help me. And sometimes they will give me links to other people that have already built the exact same thing that I'm wanting. And the cool thing about N8N is you can literally copy and paste some of them you have to pay for. I'm not paid for any, but most of them are free. I can literally copy and paste what someone else has already built out. I just have to modify it for my purpose. So my biggest hack is just go to ChatGPT, find the GPT for the platform you're using. So I just searched N8N under the GPTs, and it will walk you through the process. What is, and I've not tested this out. I'll just add this too. I've not tested this out, so I don't know if it can do this yet. But Perplexity just came out with Comet, which is a browser-based AI agent, and I'm very curious to see if it's going to allow me to, if it's going to do the building for me inside of N8N. I don't know, but that would be like a dream. If it could do that, that would be an absolute dream.
Love it. No, that's super cool. That's awesome. Tyson, is it fair to assume there'll be some AI conversation at the conference in October?
There definitely will. So Becca's the CEO of Maximum Lawyer, and she and I have conversations on a regular basis. Sometimes I will overdo it with AI, and I have to back off. So I will make sure there's going to be a great mix of AI and non-AI topics because we still do live in the real world where AI is not fully integrated in everything. So there will be definitely some great conversation about AI, but it's not all going to be AI. I know that exhausts some people, so it's not going to be all AI, but it will be. There will be some great discussions
Love
about
it.
it.
Love it. Awesome. Okay, so then transitioning again for a minute here, so your law firm, you guys obviously have grown a lot over the last 14, 15 years. Can you just talk a little bit about kind of what how'd you do it? Like from a marketing perspective, right? We're a marketing company. Most of the folks listening to this podcast are thinking about marketing. So what worked for you guys? How'd you guys grow to the extent that you have?
It's a mix of things where I mean you do have to start from one thing and move to the next and then stick with it and be consistent. So we did start early was I mean, a big part was networking was a big part of it to start. I'm convinced that you could drop me into any city or really any attorney that wants to do whatever practice area, and if they're willing to put in the work for networking, you can generate enough cases to make a really good living. So it really started with that. I definitely hit networking early on, and it's kind of a dirty word. So I built relationships early on is what I did. So
Yeah.
it was really important about building relationships. But then it really, I mean, we got into SEO, LSAs, AdWords. It's a good mix. I think what you have to understand if once you start to grow, it has to be a really good mix. You can't just rely on one thing. You can't just do all I'm going to do is SEO. You have to mix in other things because things like what just happened the other day whenever I was browsing and Google popped up with AI mode. It literally got a pop-up said, "Do you want to test out AI mode?" I said, "Yes." And it it had like three links on the right side, but otherwise it just gave me my answer. So things are changing rapidly. I
Yeah.
think searches up LLM searches up 527%. And the reason I bring this up is because we did a lot of different things and things have shifted a lot since 2011, right? They've think about how different it is. So we had to evolve as things evolved. And so it's really important to understand you can't put all your eggs in one basket. I've seen that
Yeah.
happen with several firms. You can't do that. So it's a mix of things. But I mean, right now, you could just do social media if you wanted to, TikTok. You could do that if you do it in the right way. I think the mistake that people make a lot of times with TikTok is that or any of the, Instagram, whatever, but they don't really have a funnel built out. You have to have a funnel. Each one of the different channels you pick have to have a funnel. It just has to have a funnel. If you haven't thought that through, that's a common mistake where, yeah, let's say that you get a bunch of views. Great. You get a bunch of followers. Great. Does that lead to clients? If it doesn't lead to clients, then what are you doing it for? It doesn't make any sense. You're just doing it for fun or ego at that point. So actually, you have to have it all connected together, and that's a big mistake people make. So to answer your question, we did a variety of things, but we also evolved as time as things change.
Yeah, love it. And one of the things I see law firm owners and plenty of business owners in every industry is, everybody wants that bright, shiny object where it's like, oh man, if I just go do LSAs, yeah, I'll be good and I'll have my marketing problems will be solved and all of that. And to your point, like number one, it's always evolving. And number two, you really do need those funnels in place and follow up and all that. So I like that you talked about that because I do think and in the marketing space, I think marketing agencies sometimes do maybe a little bit of a disservice too in presenting things as just a bright shiny object. It's like, hey, sign up for this one thing and that's all you're ever going to need. It's
It's just,
never that
it's
simple.
just one case. It's just one case. You sign up now, you get one case. It'll pay for itself. Yeah,
Yeah,
I've heard
yeah.
that 1,000 times.
Yep, yep. It's not that simple. We'd all love it to be that simple, but it never is. I like that you talked about, starting with a focus on networking relationships and like that's clearly not the sexy thing in 2025, but that's always been my philosophy too, is especially when you're starting with I like to say, early in business, you've got more time than money, right? And as you grow, your available time diminishes, and your cash resources hopefully increase. And it's like, in that early stage, like building those relationships is what you got to do. And then you start using, as your cash flows increase, you can start using those resources strategically. I always like to tell people the first thing you should probably be doing, in my opinion, is use marketing that then backs up those relationships. So it's like, okay, cool, you're out going to BNI, Chamber of Commerce, having lunches, like meeting people. Well, you should have some email marketing in place so that when you have a great conversation with somebody, then you've got some email automations that keep you top of mind, right? So that you don't have to go have a conversation with them every 2 weeks, because they're seeing your content, they're getting your email and all of that. So I like that you guys approached it that way. And I'm sure that was, kind of part of why you've been as successful as you have, because you built on a real solid foundation.
Can I tell you what I think is the most overlooked marketing by far?
Please.
Okay. It's marketing to your current client as they're your client, like actually demonstrating the value that you're adding to their case and continuing to do it throughout the case. It is the thing that people the mistake they make is that they forget that that is a part of it. Like that's why we have focused so much on customer service, because there is so much benefit to that. And with PI especially, it can add value to the case. That's one of the things, it can add value to the case. But if you just, let's say that you did a really good job on of just taking care of the client and make sure that all their needs are met. But let's say you don't do a very good job on the case. Okay, let's just say that that happens. You've actually built up so much goodwill with that client that all of the negative ramifications from that probably won't happen. But if you did a crappy job of taking care of that client throughout the case, you didn't really focus on customer service, and then you screw something up or you don't do as good of a job, guess what they're going to do? They're going to go complain about you to other
Yeah.
people. They're going to give you a 1-star Google review or worse. And so there's all these other benefits that they really head all that off. They head off the negative, but when you do a really good job on the case and you've taken care of them, met all their needs, answered all their questions, now they're going to go out and they're going to preach to everyone about you. And so that's the part where people really forget that you're still marketing. You're not it handling their case is you're still marketing. That's part of it, and you have to remember that part of it.
That is such a great perspective. I've never heard it broken down that way, but I love that. I think that makes so much sense. And it's kind of a corollary to one of our thought processes too, which is similar in that you've got you've got your current clients, right, which you just described, but then you've also got this network of people, whether it's past clients, referral sources, all these people that already have some level of relationship with you. And like that to me is like the second biggest missed opportunity behind what you just said, right? And I think a lot of marketing agencies and law firms are often so focused on going and finding brand new people, right? Like through Google Ads or LSAs or whatever. And don't get me wrong, like you need that too. But the people that already know, like, and trust you because they've already done business with you or they've, had lunch with you, like, man, those are your highest value assets. And so to me, that's the first place your marketing should be targeted. And, tactically for us, that looks like email marketing. It also looks like retargeting, like you should have your clients and your referral sources on a list retargeting them. And so you're sharing your content and hopefully you're creating content that provides value and you're keeping them engaged and you kind of build from there is my philosophy.
No, absolutely. So I'll tell you, I'll give you a couple stories, a couple examples. So I can remember 2 times where the clients actually told me these stories, and this was so wild to me that they were willing to do it. But so when in PI, sometimes what we'll do is the initial offer, and we always warn clients, but well, sometimes the initial offer is bad. It's just one of those things where like the initial offer is bad. And so a couple of times this has happened. The client went and called around and spoke to other attorneys to see if, maybe, they needed to get another attorney. And I remember a couple of clients called me back and they said, "Hey, so I had this, I was worried about the offer. And so I called around and I'm just, but it was just interesting how brutally honest they were with me. But they're like, we called around and all these attorneys said that I need to stick with you, that you're an amazing attorney and that you're going to do a great job for me." And I was like, but that's happened twice. And that's
Wow.
because it's because of the network that we built up, right? Where, we try to make sure we have a good reputation in our community and with the legal space and also our communities. That's part of our core values. But And then also, like we make sure we take care of our clients, but the clients, we have a good enough relationship with the clients where they're willing to like tell us things like that, which it was one of the things where like, I was surprised that they told us, but it was one of those things. It's a good example of the groundwork that we've laid.
I mean, that's so good. Number one, that's got to make you feel great as a business owner that that's the feedback you got. But it also points out the whole idea for every one person who actually told you that. How many others are doing that to every law firm all over America. And so
Sure.
like good thing to keep in mind. Well, listen, that's awesome, Tyson. This has been a really great conversation. Really appreciate your time. For listeners who want to follow you and just kind of be in the loop with you and your work, like what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, I'd say maximumlawyer.com is a good way of doing it. Or if, on any of the social media channels at Lawyer Tyson, you can find me on pretty much all of them. So at Lawyer Tyson or Maximum Lawyer.
Love it. Tyson, thanks so much. This has been awesome. Look forward to seeing you in Nashville.
Thanks for having me, Danny. I can't wait to meet you in person in Nashville as well. So thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun.